If you've been Googling which diet is best for your IBS, you've probably come across the low FODMAP diet. And you've also probably seen mixed advice about it. Some people say that it cured their IBS, and some people say that it ruined their gut. So what is the truth? Is the low FODMAP diet something that you should try, stay on, or ditch altogether? In this video, I'll unpack how it works, when it helps, when it starts working against you, and what to do if you're still stuck with symptoms, so that you can get a sense of the chaos and finally get your gut back on track. So let's look at what the low FODMAP diet actually is. Let's start from the top. FODMAPs is an acronym given to the fermentable carbohydrates that are found in everyday foods, such as apples, onions, garlic, beans, and for most people they're harmless. But if you've got IBS, your gut doesn't fully absorb them. They ferment and they can pour water into the gut, causing gas, bloating, and a change in bowel habits. Now, the low FODMAP diet was developed by Monash University, and essentially it was to try and figure out which one of these FODMAPs could be causing your IBS symptoms. And this low FODMAP diet essentially has three main phases. The first one is the elimination phase, usually 4 to 6 weeks, where you cut out the high FODMAP foods completely. The second phase is the reintroduction phase, where you slowly reintroduce these FODMAPs one at a time to test your tolerances. And then the final stage is the personalization phase, where if, let's say, you've cut out a food group such as lactose, then you would work out, okay, if I remove lactose, how do I keep remaining nutritionally adequate long term? And that third step is the goal. Everyone's gut is different, and you want to make sure that you're cutting out the foods that you definitely can't have, but also reintroducing foods that you can, so that you have variety in your diet. Now, although that long-term phase is the goal, the problem is most people don't actually get there. They stay stuck in the elimination phase because they feel safer there. And this next part is really important. Why the low FODMAP diet works and then doesn't. In the short run, that elimination phase, cutting out high FODMAP foods completely, can feel amazing. Maybe you've got less bloating, less urgency, fewer flare-ups, finally some control on your gut that you may not have seen for years. And it's completely understandable that people would stay on this initial elimination phase. What's the point in risking anything, right? Like, why would you try and reintroduce high FODMAP foods if you're feeling amazing now? Your gut's finally better, you can just live without them, right? Not really. After a few months, cracks will start to show. If you've reintroduced FODMAP correctly, let's say with a dietitian or a nutritionist or a GP, then none of these apply. I'm just talking about staying in that elimination phase, where you've cut out FODMAPs completely and you've not tried to reintroduce. So first of all, if you stay on the low FODMAP diet for too long, your gut microbiome will start shrinking. FODMAPs feed good bacteria in our gut. When you remove them for too long, diversity begins to drop. Let's take a practical example. Let's say you cut out lactose completely and your symptoms have improved. That's great. But when you skip that reintroduction phase completely, then it means that you never actually know how much lactose your gut could have handled. Maybe half a glass of milk would have been okay, or a small amount of yogurt. But because you've cut it out entirely, the enzyme that your body uses to digest lactose no longer starts producing it. So a few months later, even tiny amounts can cause a flare-up. You haven't just avoided the problem, you've accidentally trained your gut to be more sensitive to it. The second issue with being on the low FODMAP diet for too long is that you end up cutting out foods that aren't the enemy in the first place. Garlic, onions, lentils, these aren't bad foods. They're actually nutritious and full of prebiotics that your gut loves. It's important to understand that high FODMAP does not mean unhealthy. If you don't reintroduce FODMAPs, you'll never know which ones were actually beneficial for your gut. Also, our microbiome changes over time. What you're now insensitive to doesn't mean that you'll be insensitive to it in 10 years' time. You might find that when you were younger, you couldn't tolerate apples, but now you can. But because you've removed it from your diet long term, you'll never find out. You have to be really careful about cutting out foods that actually you can have. I use this example with my patients all the time. Let's say you have a pizza, and after you have it, you feel gas, you feel bloated, you have a big flare-up. You might incorrectly assume that, that means I have an intolerance to gluten in the dough, it means I have an intolerance to fructose in the tomatoes, and I have an intolerance to lactose in the cheese. So you remove all of them, you stay away from them, and your gut feels better because you removed 3 food groups. But what you don't realize is that it could have just been the fructose in the tomatoes that's causing the issue, and you just have a fructose insensitivity. But because you've removed everything, you've cut out 2 other large food groups which could have been beneficial for your gut, and you've made your diet much smaller as a result. The third issue with following the low FODMAP diet long term term, that elimination phase, is that nutrient gaps start to creep in. The low FODMAP diet can make it incredibly hard to be nutritionally adequate. And that's not because there's not enough nutrients in the foods in terms of low FODMAP, because there is actually a lot of variety within the low FODMAP diet. But the issue is that people tend to just stick to the foods or the safe meals that they know, that they recognize, and just repeat and have them all the time. So for example, they might go to a supermarket and see a ton of vegetables, but they just have courgette because they know that half a courgette tends to be good for them, and they just then eat courgette all the time. Without variety, fiber, calcium, and certain vitamins can start to drop off. And ironically, that can actually make our guts worse. So for example, if you're cutting out a lot of vegetables, then you might find that your fiber intake is decreased, and that can be really difficult for people that both have constipation with their IBS, but also with diarrhea. So in an effort to make your symptoms better, you're actually making them worse long term. The fourth issue with following the low FODMAP diet long term is that food anxiety does take over. You start scanning every label, you start fearing a flare-up. Your world has shrunk. You no longer eat foods that are new or recipes that are novel. That stress can also activate your gut-brain connection, cause issues with your gut, and recreate some of the symptoms that you were trying to avoid. And this leads to a big social factor, which is our final issue with following the low FODMAP diet long term. It can isolate you. Eating out, traveling, social plans can all be affected. Oh, I can't possibly go to my friend's birthday meal because what if it's not low FODMAP, and what if I have a flare-up? When your life shrinks around food rules, your quality of life drops fast. So yes, the low FODMAP diet does work as a short diagnostic tool, but long term it can quietly backfire. So let's talk about how to use it the right way. If you're new to IBS and you're wondering whether to start the diet, or you've been on it for months and feel stuck, then here is how to reset. Step 1, start with structure, not restriction. Do the elimination phase only if you've tried other gut-friendly options. And what I mean by gut-friendly options is if you're eating a ton of junk food and you have IBS, stop eating the junk food. I know it sounds like tough love, but like, try the simple solutions first. Are you having enough sleep? Are you doing enough exercise? Do you eat healthily? Speak to your doctor, speak to a nutritionist, speak to a dietitian, and get an IBS diagnosis first, by the way. Now, if you tried all those things and you've got the IBS diagnosis, start the elimination phase, but do it for a short period, only 5 to 6 weeks max. Plan your reintroduction phase before you even start it. You need to make sure you're reintroducing. Work from a proper food list. The Monash app is really beneficial. I think it costs about £7 now. I'm not sure what that is in dollars, probably $10. But make sure you follow an official approved list. There's so many sources on the internet. Each one of them is different. So the Monash app is one that I would definitely recommend, or their website. I'll put that in the description below. And then step 2, reintroduce strategically. Please make sure that you reintroduce. I know that it can seem super appealing to stick to eliminating foods if you feel better, but hopefully all the reasons in this video is why you should not. I've worked with so many patients where they're stuck on the elimination phase, and as a result their diet has got worse and worse, their quality of life has suffered, and it's actually harder to reintroduce foods down the line for them. So let's say you've done the elimination phase, pick one group to reintroduce. So for example, fructose, have that in a small amount, try it, see how you feel. After some days, try a larger amount, and then even larger, and just see how your symptoms react. If they're okay, or you're suffering with symptoms, then wait a bit and then try the next FODMAP group. You should start to get a sense of which FODMAP groups you can't tolerate, which ones you can, and also if you can't tolerate them, what kind of dose you can have. You'll start to get an idea of not only what FODMAP groups you can't tolerate, but also if you can't tolerate them, how much you can't tolerate. So it might just be that you can have half a glass of milk, but you can't have a full glass of milk. And if you can't have the FODMAP groups, then just wait a few days and try the next one. There's a very small chance that you'll be insensitive to all the FODMAP groups. So that's why it's important to just individually test them. And also if you tried the low FODMAP diet a few months ago, then try it again, because our gut sensitivities change over time. And then step 3, which is kind of following the third phase, the personalization phase of the low FODMAP diet, where you're thinking longer term, start trying to rebuild some of that diversity in your gut. Make sure you're having enough fiber, try some oats, have some kiwis, have some potatoes, try some fermented foods such as kefir, sauerkraut, yogurts, any kind of prebiotic things that are good for your gut. Your gut microbes adapt, and the goal here is to train them, not starve them. Okay, so we've gone through the low FODMAP diet, why you shouldn't stay on the elimination phase for too long, a brief summary on how to reintroduce and why it's important. What do you do if the low FODMAP diet just hasn't worked for you? You've tried eliminating low FODMAP foods and you still get symptoms. If your symptoms still don't improve after a proper elimination phase and a reintroduction phase, then don't stay stuck there. You might as well just reintroduce all the high FODMAP foods again, because if you're not seeing a benefit, then why cut them out? And you can try the next treatment option. I know that it can seem super disheartening if you've tried the low FODMAP diet, you've put all your hope into that being the thing that will finally cure your IBS, and then you do it and you don't see any relief. It can be really annoying. And what I would say though is at least it's something that you can cross off the treatment options and you can move on to the next thing to try. So either way, you are closer to getting the support that you need. So what other IBS strategies are there? The first thing is fiber, trying things like soluble fiber like psyllium husk, and that can reduce both constipation and diarrhea. The second thing is regular movement. Even short walks can help gut motility and gas clearance. The third thing you could try is gut-directed hypnotherapy. A lot of people don't like this option because they think that it's insinuating that IBS is all in their head. No, it's not, but you do need to recognize that there is a link between what you think up here, your gut, and your brain. Then there's probiotics. There is some research that specific strains can help with IBS symptoms. As I said earlier, look at your stress levels and sleep patterns because poor rest or constant tension can keep the gut on alert. And if needed, targeted medication guided by a doctor or a dietitian can really help. So that's why it's important to try out different treatment options and see what works for you. So is the low FODMAP diet effective long term? It's a brilliant tool for identifying food triggers if you have them, but not a forever plan. Don't be on the elimination phase forever. Now, if you're feeling stuck and you don't know which treatment option will have the highest success rate for your specific symptoms, if you'd like to enjoy real food again, not have to worry about IBS flare-ups, and finally get your symptoms under control, it just takes the right structure and support for you. I've helped thousands of people with their IBS symptoms. If you'd like to finally get relief from your IBS symptoms, then you can book a one-to-one free 15-minute appointment with myself below. The link is in the description. I hope this video helps. Stay subscribed for more IBS tips. I wish you digestive wellness and good luck.